Why are Canadians so unhappy right now? This is a question that's been on my mind a lot, and I want to try and answer it in today's video. Canadian myth making often paints our country as polite, prosperous, and somehow immune from the upheavals facing the rest of the world. But a question has been gnawing at many of us lately. Why are Canadians so unhappy? Recent polls show that the cost of living has eclipsed every other concern, which is a major reversion from the trade war focused priorities that we had during the 2025 election. An Abacus data survey leading up to the 2025 election warned that cost of living concerns surge, capturing a national mood where kitchen table issues matter far more than geopolitics. Today's video is going to be an honest, heartfelt look at what's making Canadians upset and anxious and the stories behind the statistics and where we might find hope. So let's start with cost of living, the new ballot question. Affordability now eclipses the trade war. Polling before the federal election showed that Canadians weren't talking about tariffs. They were talking about groceries, rent, and childcare. Abacus data reported that rising pressure on affordability was reshaping politics. Next on the list is stagnating economic output. A recent Fraser Institute study found that between 2020 and 2024, Canada's GDP per capita actually declined by 2%, which is the worst five-year fall since the Great Depression. Weak business investment and population growth mean productivity, especially on a per capita basis, is shrinking. As Canadians, we feel this in our wallet. People feel it when they go to the grocery store or when they look at their credit card bills at the end of the month or their lack of savings. This has created a really severe pessimism about the future. Nearly 75% of Ontarians do not believe that the next generation will enjoy the same standard of living as today, with pessimism rising to 83% among older respondents. And that fear colors everything from career choices to whether or not young people feel that they can start families or buy houses. When you're worried about paying the bills, a trade war feels abstract. The conversation has shifted to the basics. Will I still be able to afford rent? Will I still have a job? Can I ever own a home? Will my kids be better off? Am I even thinking about having kids? And this has caused many people to defer their housing dreams. Homeownership is seen as a luxury. In a 2024 Ipsos poll, 80% of Canadians said owning a home is now only for the rich, and among renters, 72% have given up on ever owning a home. This is a staggering level of resignation, especially among the youth, the future leaders of our country, to basically be giving up hope and feeling completely excluded from the economy. And younger generations are acutely affected by this. A Habitat for Humanity survey found that 73% of Gen Z worry about saving for a down payment. 70% of Canadians say that owning a home has become impossible. And it's really easy to depersonalize this when you think about it in just data and statistics. I tend to do this a lot, but these are real lives being put on hold here. This is a reflection of the fact that many people in their 20s and 30s live with their parents or in precarious rental situations or insecure housing situations, juggling multiple jobs and side hustles just to make ends meet. In the Globe and Mail feature by Aaron Anderson that inspired this article, they talk about a young couple where one partner works 3 jobs and the other works 2 jobs, and they live in their in-laws' basement, unsure if they'll ever qualify for a mortgage. And they have a dog, and that brings them some joy, but the dream of, becoming parents or foster parents remains deferred for them. And stories like this couple puts a human face on the housing crisis. And this pressure isn't just economic. An underfunded mental health system and a toxic drug supply in Canada have created a crisis. We have rising mental health disorders. Statistics Canada now reports that 18.3% of Canadians aged 15 or older meet the criteria for a mood, anxiety, or substance use disorder. And among youth aged 12 to 17, that proportion rating their mental health as fair or poor more than doubled between 2019 and 2023. The Center for Addiction and Mental Health notes that suicide is the second leading cause of death for people aged 15 to 24. And a leading cause of death for those aged 10 to 14. The same page warns that 21% of Canadians will meet the criteria for addiction in their lifetime, costing the economy about $40 billion annually. We have a catastrophic overdose crisis. More than 50,000 Canadians have died from opioid overdoses since 2016, with more than 20 deaths per day recorded in 2022. And the Canadian Mental Health Association laments that provinces allocate only 6.3% of health budgets to mental health care, about half of the recommended level. And suicide rates have not meaningfully declined, and hospital readmissions are high. We can't talk about happiness in Canada without acknowledging this suffering. Depression and addiction don't discriminate. They affect urban and rural families, newcomers and longtimers, affluent and those on the margins. And the stigma around seeking help compounds the problem. These problems impact young people more than older people. And many young Canadians feel that they're climbing a mountain their parents didn't have to face. A growing body of research points to the collapse in life satisfaction among Canadians under 35. This article in the Globe and Mail really summarizes it well. According to the World Happiness Report, Canada's ranking has fallen from top 10 to 18th overall. And when only those under 30 are considered, the country drops to 58. Researchers are calling this a crisis of the young, as happiness that once followed a U-shaped curve now resembles a steep climb, combining high housing costs, precarious work, anxiety about the future of the world, and social isolation. It's no wonder many young people don't believe that they will attain their parents' standard of living. Interestingly, the charts here in the Globe and Mail article, they did a really good representation of the data. It shows that Canada saw the fifth worst decline in happiness among people under 30 in the world. And if you look at the life satisfaction by birth cohort, both millennials and Gen Zs started off their adult lives at the happiest. Millennials started off as the happiest and have now trended down to the second most unhappy. But I think the important question behind all of this data is that something needs to change. And so the question is, what can we do? We can't wish away the housing crisis or undo years of underinvestment in proper infrastructure around housing or mental health services or healthcare. There are serious breaks in the way our country was run over the last little bit that are yielding consequences that just won't have material fixes in any sort of immediate timeline. But there are some more concrete steps individuals and governments can take. And the first one, from my perspective, is make housing affordable again, or just generally make the life essentials, food and shelter, attainable for the average person. This means increasing the supply of diverse housing, co-ops, rental units, social housing, reform zoning to allow gentle density. I would be of the perspective that almost nothing is off the table until we can properly deliver affordable housing. And that includes things like the Greenbelt. I think that you get these sort of like small factions of different political views that are now battling against each other. Sort of like with the Greenbelt, you sort of have like your climate battling, your housing affordability factions, sort of both on the left side of the political sphere. We've seen targeted supports for first-time homebuyers and a ton of rental supply coming on, but we don't really have any indication that we're going to see restoration of hope for homeownership. I think we, just like the housing infrastructure, we need to invest in mental health and addiction. Following CMHA's call to raise mental health funding to 12% of health budgets. And I think we really need to prioritize economic productivity in Canada. We need to encourage business investment by reducing regulatory barriers. We need to diversify our economy. We need to invest in skills training and technology so that young people feel like they can be net contributors to the economy, and ensuring that immigration actually matches labor market needs. Higher productivity is essential to raise real wages, which will help us progress towards greater housing affordability and actual growth in Canada's economy. I think that we need to give young people a voice, and a lot of that should have happened during the election, and young people should have been able to decide the election, but I think a lot of them would rather complain about this on social media. And so hopefully we can see some progress in a direction where they're more active in the democratic system in the future. And so all in all, I just want to wrap up with the fact that like a lot of people shit on me and call me anti-Canadian because most of the data that I end up presenting is negative. It doesn't paint Canada in a good light. I'm of the opinion that it's important to look at these things because Canada is a country worth believing in. Recognizing our problems doesn't make us anti-Canadian. It means that we care enough to demand better, and we want to see our country be the best that it can be. The cost of living crisis, declining GDP per capita, housing unaffordability, mental health and addictions crises, and generational pessimism are all real and interconnected things, but they are not insurmountable. Our social contract feels frayed, but it's still ours to repair. And by investing in people, building communities, and pushing our leaders for structural change, we can actually restore hope and ensure that the next generation does not inherit a diminished Canada where they're resentful of our past or hopeless towards our future. And to me, the path of happiness isn't in denying our challenges, it's in actually looking at them, really, really understanding them and facing them together.